Welcome to FVG. Mohammed Ben Siamar, like always, for Islam, every week on Wednesday. Today I speak about the Umayyad dynasty of Damascus. So Muawiyah was a shrewd diplomat who quickly established peace and prosperity, which were maintained during most of his two-decade reign. Now we speak about 661, 680 after Christ. So Muawiyah, he moved the capital from Medina to Damascus in Syria, where he remained till the end of the Umayyad rule. The shift of the center of power, first from Medina with his simple semi-nomadic Arab society, and then from Kufa with its heterogeneous population to one of the oldest cities of the Middle East, altered both the ideal and the reality of the caliphate of Khilafah. Pardon me. Muawiyah lived in great pomp and ceremony. He justified his style of life on the grounds that were he to live as Omar the second Caliph had done in Medina, no one would respect his authority. There's a difference between the desert society and society in Syria. Culturally and administratively, the Umayyad Caliphate was an Arab state, but it was for more than an Arabian state. The other Arabs in Syria were largely Christians and had a long contact with Byzantium and Persia. Especially their administrators helped run an efficient state machinery. The Umayyad dynasty was a period of remarkable cultural, administrative, and military achievement. It was also during this period that the Arabic writing of the Quran was standardized. Now we speak about the Shia opposition to the Umayyad, and we'll explain what Shia Islam means. Before his death in 680, Muawiyah appointed his son Yazid as his successor. This was a total break with earlier Arab and Islamic tradition and new practice in Caliphate succession. These actions, together with Muawiyah's hostility to the sons of Ali and their followers, antagonized many notables of the cities of Medina and Mecca, and strengthened the opposition to Yazid. The most serious opposition came from the second son of Ali, Hassan's younger brother Hussein. In contrast with the realistic Hassan, Hussein was a man of uncompromising idealism. When Hassan died during Muawiyah's reign, Hussein began to prepare a revolt against Umayyad authority. He led a small army to Kufa, but he was intercepted by Yazid's governor and in Karbala, a small spot on the Euphrates River. A brief battle took place which resulted in the massacre of Hussein, his relatives, and his supporters. The tragedy of Karbala had far-reaching consequences on the political level, but also in religious aspect with the first Shia sect. An important phenomenon was their denial of the death of the leader. They declared him to be in occultation, that is, in hiding, and await his imminent messianic return. Furthermore, most of the sects looked for a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad in a hereditary line through his daughter Fatima and his son-in-law Ali for guidance and ultimate salvation. Shiism, the Shia tradition, has, in contrast with the Sunni tradition, always been a movement of change and wide diversity. Shiism is a broad term covering a large number of religious, political movements, sects, and ideologies. Common to most of them is a general allegiance to Ali and his descendant and their right to spiritual and temporal authority in the Muslim community. It began as a political movement or party, Shia. Shia means party, Shia Ali, party of Ali, upholding Ali's right to success the Prophet as a leader of Imam or Imam. For Shia Muslims, the Imam is the rightful, divinely mandated leader of the Muslim community, whereas for Sunni Muslims the term Imam simply means the leader of prayer at the mosque. Shiism has always signified an absolute devotion to and love for the Prophet's household. This devotion is based on a number of Quranic verses exalting the families of major prophets, including Muhammad, and on some verses in the Quran or other sayings in which it is said that the Prophet designates Ali as his successor. Afterwards, theologians constructed a system of legitimate authority based on the doctrine of imama, the imamat or office of the imam as designated leader. The death of the Prophet's grandson Hussein at Karbala in 680 contrasts sharply with the triumphant success of early Islam. It continues to be commemorated as the day of Ashura, the 10th of Muharram, expressing Shia hopes and frustration, messianic expectation, and highly eschatological view of history. It is observed by the Shia community as a day of suffering and martyrdom, expressed in processions and pilgrimage to the sacred spot of Karbala. The theme of suffering in Shia piety instilled on one hand in a kind of resignation in the face of injustice, but it nourished also a revolutionary spirit that refuses to tolerate tyranny and oppression. Some Shia sects, it's very good that I speak about them because they are important to understand Shia Islam. They first of all of these sects, sevener or Ismaili Shiism. What are the seveners? The majority of Shiis accepted the line of Hussein Husseynid Imams down to Ja'far al-Sadiq, died 765, who was the sixth Imam. A major schism occurred when Ja'far, oldest son and successor Ismail, died before Ja'far. And when he appointed a younger son, so Ja'far appointed a younger son as his successor, this was regarded by many as irregular, and a significant group insisted that the imamat, or the imama, should continue in Ismail line even if he died. They thus came to be known as Ismailis or Seveners. Basic to Ismaili faith and worldview is the doctrine of the divine mandate of the Imam and his absolute temporal and religious authority. This fundamental teaching was developed in an impressive esoteric system of prophetology, or inside, which made Ismailism rather a secret sect that was spread widely through an active network of agents of the Imams and their deputies. The Fatimid Caliphs, you know Fatimid dynasty, which ruled in the Middle Ages almost whole north of Africa and the Middle East. The Fatimid Caliphs, capital is Cairo, encouraged the development of an Ismaili legal tradition, but before the end of the Fatimid rule, Ismailism became an anti-legal phenomenon in Islam, like most other Shia sects. The Ismaili movement broke up into a number of secret societies, often mutually antagonistic. For centuries, they lived as an occult and obscure sect in the Indo-Pakistan subcontinent, East Africa, Syria, and Iran. Their leader came to be known as the Aga Khan, of Aga Khan, an Indo-Iranian title signifying nobility. A process of reconciliation and reintegration started under the third Aga Khan, died in 1957, and he's continued under his successor, the Harvard-educated Karim Aga Khan, died 1936. In modern times, Ismailis immigrated in large numbers to the west, where they live as a prosperous, well-organized community. Second sect, Druze, or Druzes. The Druzes are essentially a chiliastic or millenarian religious sect. Millenarian, they say if the Day of Judgment broke, there will be 1,000 years of prosperity before the end of the world. So, like I said, the Druzes are essentially millenarian religious sect who hold that their leader, Hamza bin Ali, a Persian missionary who disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 1021, is the master or wali of the age, that he is in occultation, and that he and Al-Hakim, the one, will return at the end of time to rule the world. They also believe in the reincarnation of the soul in a newborn child immediately after a person dies. I think it's the only sect who believe in reincarnation, being in the Islam of the groups. They are Muslims. The Druzes still exist as a small occult sect in Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. And by the way, they are the only group which they have a right to add to the Israeli army. Other sect, 12er. That's the larger group, or Imami Shiism. According to their doctrine, the Prophet, through divine designation, appointed Ali as his vice regent or legatee wasi. Ali in turn appointed his son Hassan, and Hassan appointed his brother Hussein. Thereafter, each imam designated his successor, who was usually who was usually so he designed his successor, who was usually his eldest son, like this, always eldest son. So the line of imams of the descendant of Hussein continues through the younger son of Ja'far as the 7th imam, till the 12th imam, Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Askari, who disappeared at the age, they say, 28 in 874. There are different opinions over his disappearance. When he went into occultation or hiding, Shias hold that he communicated with his Shia through 4 successive deputies until 941, and then entered in greater occultation. It means that Al-Askari, Hassan al-Askari, can see us, but we don't see him, following the Shiite, which will last till the end of the world. Before the day of resurrection, he, as the Mahdi, Mahdi means the rightly guided one, and Jesus will return to establish universal justice and true Islam on earth. Imami Shiites agree with Sunni Muslims on the centrality of Quran, so they have the same, they recognize that the Quran which exists is the same Quran. They have both recognized the Quran, and they recognize also the Sunnah, as the primary source of Islamic law. However, they understand the Sunnah not simply as the life example of the Prophet, but also of his rightful successors, the Imams. This means that the Sunnah for them extends over a period of 3 centuries till the end of the lesser occultation of the 12th Imam in 941, which I mentioned. Because Imami Shiism is a Sharia-based legal school, it has generally been accepted by the rest of the Muslims community. It means that the school of Ja'far as-Sadiq is recognized by the other Muslim community. I will stop here a little bit to give you opportunity to ask question, and I return back to speak about Islamic law or Sharia.